Welcome to the MVP Show. Today's show is brought to you by the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge. So far, people have attended this program from 34 countries from around the world. Wherever you're located, this is an opportunity to invest in your career over a 90-day period. I run it each year, once a year. If you want to know more, go to nz365guy.com/mentoring. It's 100% free. You just have to invest your time in yourself and in your career. Anyhow, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Wellington, New Zealand. He's a senior technical consultant. He's a speaker at various community events. His hobbies outside work include gaming, swimming, and watching movies. You can check him out on Twitter at Linn Zaw Win. That's LINNZAWWIN. And his blog, which is all about the Power Platform, linnzawwin.blogspot.com. Linn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good to have you on. Now tell me, where do you come from originally?
I am originally from Myanmar. So that is one of the Southeast Asian country. I think other than me, AK was also in Wellington, New Zealand. He was also previously on your podcast. And so he's also one of the other Burmese nationality. So yeah, I was on that Myanmar country.
So how did you come from Myanmar to New Zealand?
Yes, that was quite a long journey. After I graduated in Myanmar, that was around 2009, I went to Singapore for postgraduate study. And that's where I worked in Singapore for around 7.5 years. And finally, after working too long in Singapore, and I just decided, okay, this is really not really good for a work-life balance. And then so I chose to migrate, and I started applying jobs around Australia and New Zealand. And that's where AK referred me a job, and that's how I ended up in New Zealand.
So I'm interested in a little detail around that. Tell me, and I tell you why I'm interested. So I worked in Australia for a long time and brought a lot of people in back then on what was called a 457 visa from around the world to work in the practice I was in Australia.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, what was that process? What's it called? What was that process? How did you go about it?
I am not sure about this right now because the process changed over time after they reviewed this immigration rules and regulations. But back then, when I migrated in the end of 2015, it was more around like we did the interview online, the Skype interview, and then the employer just offered me a job offer letter. And with the offer letter, they also gave us their accredited employer. And with that letter and that offer letter, I have to go for apply for work visa online. So that time I applied for a walk to residence category, and then yeah. So
do you remember how much it cost? As in the application fee?
It wasn't too much. It's just like a few $100s.
Oh, okay. Because in Australia it was like $2,000-$3,000 or so.
Oh, really? So yeah, it wasn't that much. It's more like administration fees, and and my that's my previous employer who employed me. They also just compensate some of the relocation package, so it was good.
Yeah. And so, wow, how long you been in New Zealand now? Almost coming up 10 years, is it? 7, 8 years, something?
Yeah, so it will be 6 years in coming November.
Wow. What do you think? What's your thoughts on New Zealand?
It's really great. It's really lovely country with a really chill and relaxed. And it's a good thing about this is everything, if you're an outdoor person, and everything is quite accessible. You can go for maybe like skiing and just drive up for 2 hours and you can go skiing. Or if you drive 1 hour, you can go to the beach, do surfing.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Tell me, did you bring your family with you? Do you have family over here now?
Yeah, just me and my wife, only two
Hmm.
of us.
Yes. And is she working in technology?
Yes, she is, but more of a project management role. So she's not into those technical coding.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like yourself, of course. What was? Tell me. I'm a bit interested on you coming to New Zealand. Tell me about. Was there any kind of cultural shock that you had? That what surprised you around some of the things that Kiwis did, or that you didn't expect now that you've lived in New Zealand for a while?
Oh, the first thing about is the Kiwi accent. So yeah, so it was for the first year in New Zealand. I had to like ask like, oh, excuse me, can you please repeat again? Like numerous times to those Kiwis. Um, but luckily I walked in a team where the team is quite like diverse and there are a lot of foreigners from Philippines and Lebanon and other foreign countries. So it's okay speaking with those foreign not non-Kiwis. Yeah. So yeah, I just only had a problem with the Kiwi accent, but eventually I started listening to those radios and TV shows and just getting used to it.
Nice, nice. So, when you think about technology, you obviously came from a background in Dynamics 365, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, yes, exactly. Actually, that is how my the whole career started actually.
Okay, tell me about that.
Um, yeah, so as I mentioned, I just attended the postgraduate diploma back in Singapore. After that, they half of the 6 month coursework and the 6 month internship. And when I was assigned for a 6 month internship, I got to a company which that did the CIM 3.0 and CIM 4.0 um, just for to build the healthcare products. And that's when I got my internship. After 6 months, they offered me a job, and since then, I just got into that CM space, Dynamics, and then no, I since then I haven't got out of it because it was a really good and interesting um, career platform.
So, if we fast forward today, like I see this kind of, and I might get some people upset about saying this, but there are really two types of people or categories of people that I see in the Microsoft business application space now. There are those that came from a background of Dynamics 365, right? So they started their career in Dynamics and they've now broadened their horizons as they explore the Power Platform and therefore Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agents. The thing is that then there's a whole new generation that have only come in on the Power Platform. So they've, often might have gatewayed into what we do from an app, like they've just started building apps, or they've come in via Power Automate, right? I see those as the two key gateways into Microsoft Business Application that the new generation, if you like, coming through. One thing I've observed is that those in the older generation with a strong Dynamics background often do not have a very high skill in Canvas app development and do not have very high skills. And this is where I get flack. Necessary and Power Automate. They like the way it used to be done in the old days, automation using Windows Workflow Foundation, and the workflow tool that was in the core Dynamics 365 CE environment. Where do you sit?
Yeah, obviously I sit in that the older generation. Um, but as you mentioned, I'm not really proficient, really good with building Canvas apps. I do build for my hobby and for my personal projects, but in terms of the really commercial projects, I just completed only one Canvas apps in the whole one of the projects.
What about Power Automate? Are you creating lots of flows nowadays though in your projects?
Yes, indeed. In terms of Power Automate, I started using it in last 2 years, and it was just Microsoft positioned their way to, instead of using the asynchronous workflow, why not build a Power Automate Cloudflare? So I took their approach, and since I just started building the Cloudflares, it was around when the new um, Commandator Service Current Environment connector was available. So yes, so that is when I started building the Cloudflares, and I'm and then I learned a lot during the process, and that's where I started sharing my learning process in my blog post about this Power Automate.
Nice. Now, do you find, if we look at the last 6 months, have you had a need to go back and use the old workflow tool that still exists, of course? Or are you finding you're 100% Power Automate anything that needs automating nowadays?
Um, I would say I still do a workflow, um, but well, mostly for the synchronous real-time workflows. But sometimes I still do the workflows when I can quickly do it in a workflow for build something for 1 and 2 minutes, rather than setting up the whole Cloudflow for maybe 5-10 minutes. So one of the most use case that I did is having populating the primary name field of the record. So sometimes we have to populate with the lookup value, and with the Power Automate, we have to go and retrieve the name based on the GUID of the output from the trigger. So there are like multiple steps, where with the workflow it's just one step, and I can just quickly build up in 1-2 minutes. So I can't be bothered building a Cloudflare for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. What excites you most about this technology space that we're in?
So the things that really makes me most excited about this technology is that it's ever growing, consistently um, improving based on our feedback, based on the customer needs. And that is really good in terms of how we build the projects on the systems. So imagine how we are building our, for example, the typical Dataverse project with a model-driven app, comparing to last even last 5 years or even 3 years ago, when we built on top of the Dynamics 365 with XRM, and it has been improved a lot. And that is really makes me most exciting about this building, working on this platform and technology, which every day is we're learning new everything every day.
What's been your focus over the last couple of months?
For the last couple of months, it's mostly just around the Power Automate, but mainly on the Cloudflares. I haven't done much on the desktop floors.
Have you done anything on RPA?
No, not actually. Just other than doing those trainings and just testing for my personal playground. But other than that, I didn't actually.
So just on the personal playground stuff, because with Windows 11 coming out, Power Automate Desktop is going to be installed, of course, directly into the operating system. And then, and it's free to download now. And I see that there's potentially a lot of opportunity around automating stuff even on the computer, in your day-to-day job, like hint, hint, maybe filling out a timesheet, it might be quite handy, right, to automate that process from your desktop. And then I'm like, could RPA be set up to work with, I'll whisper the name, Alexa, just because it's in my office, or Google Home, is another one. Is there a possibility that with the desktop version, that we might be able to, make commands and stuff like that that would just function. I know that Cortana's on there and stuff, but yet that's just another one to learn. And I'm just wondering if, the home devices that you have could start feeding in. Like sometimes, I've gone to bed and then I hear the audio on my computer come on, like ding, ding, an email's arrived or something. And I'm just like, I wish I could just say, he, she, who shall not be named, mute the audio on the computer. And, whether RPA would play into part of that story and, have a listening service that could do that. I don't know. I see there's lots of use cases.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of potential in that area.
Yeah. What's some of the apps? You said you do some private app development, as in, for your own needs and stuff. What are some of the things that you have tinkered with?
Oh, yeah. So it is, since I came from the Dynamics background, I just built the mall-driven apps. And one of the apps I just built is just for the timesheet, as you mentioned.
Nice. Look at that. I was on it. Yeah. Oh, very cool.
In my previous company, the timesheet system is quite clunky, and I just can't fill up on the mobile, and it's really hard to do the timesheet. So what I do is I just fill it up on the go on my mobile, or just quickly on the mall-driven app. And at the end of the week, I just copy and paste or export and import it back into the timesheet system. So it's also related to that, I also do this time tracking app where I just track my time, how much I do stuff, how much I spend time for blogging and all these activities, so that I can review and just adjust accordingly. And I also has a plan for the one app that I have a plan just to keep track my finance. So all these transactions, and so the plan is to just read my bank account or credit cards with the AI builder, and then feed it into my Dataverse, and then it will automatically just categorize based on the where I spend, and then I just review and do this category, and then just my custom finance tracking system.
Yeah, very cool. How did you? Who nominated you? How did you become an MVP? And what's the best thing about being an MVP?
Yeah, there was around January 2020. Then the Trach, we all know as for his awesome level up browser extension tool, and he just reached out to me and asked me, "Are your community contributions are really cool. Are you interested in getting into the program?" But by that time, I was just started my blogging not so long ago, so I wasn't really comfortable. So I just tell him, okay, I'll just get back to you in the next 6 months, and we'll just submit. I just submitted around June 2020, and I got my MVP award in the August. So this is my second year of my MVP journey.
And what's the best thing about being an MVP?
The best thing about being an MVP is just being able to get in touch with all the other MVP family members. So they are really friendly and really welcome into their community, and it was really good. It was the best thing about being an MVP.
I love it. Wow. It's been good talking to you. Time's flown, so I always like to wrap up with some quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. This is morbid. If you knew when you're going to die, would you want to know?
I don't want to.
Interesting. What book have you read recently that you'd recommend, and why?
Oh, you will just kill me for that. I don't really read books. So the last book that I read was like Harry Potter
Nice. I
book,
love it.
and
That's good
that
though.
was
Harry Potter. That's
in
awesome.
yeah, that was in last maybe 12 years ago.
Nice, nice, nice. Last question. What's one thing you did that you wish you could go back and undo?
Oh, that is really tricky question.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing that I wish? So there is one time back in around like right after I migrated to New Zealand, my parents were planning to have a trip to Europe, and I was supposed to join that trip. And that was the time I also get into my depression episodes, and then I just refuse. I just rebel from everyone, and I just being disconnected with everyone, and I just couldn't join to that trip. So yeah, now that my dad has passed away last month, so I wish I could join the trip.
Yeah. That's very hard. That's very tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I always like it when the guests that come on are personal and real. And thank you so much for that. And yeah, I look forward to meeting you once we're out of lockdown.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show and you want to support it, check it out. Check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. I appreciate you spending this time with me today. Thank you, and see you next time.